My name is Lila Bennett, I'm 29 years old, and the first time my parents told me I had 2 days to get out of the house my grandmother left behind, I didn't argue, I didn't raise my voice, I didn't cry, I didn't even ask why, I just stood there in the hallway, my fingers resting against the edge of a picture frame that had been hanging there longer than I'd been alive, and listened. My mother spoke first, soft voice, controlled, careful, the kind of tone people use when they want to sound kind while doing something cruel. It's time to be realistic, Lila. My father didn't say much, he never did in moments like that. He just stood beside her, arms folded like the decision had already been finalized somewhere I hadn't been invited, and my brother, he leaned against the wall scrolling his phone like this was just another inconvenience in his day. You have 2 days, my mother continued, pack your things, leave the keys, let's not make this ugly. 2 days, 48 hours to disappear from the only place that had ever felt like mine. They expected something from me in that moment, a reaction, a breakdown, a fight they could later twist into proof that I was the problem, but I didn't give them any of that because the truth was they didn't know what I knew yet. So I nodded once quietly and said okay, and if you had seen their faces in that moment you might have thought they had already won, but they hadn't, not even close. And before I tell you what happened when they realized that, tell me something, what time is it? Where you are right now, and where are you listening from? Because I've learned something about stories like this, they travel further than people expect. The truth is, by the time they gave me those 2 days, I had already spent years learning exactly how little I mattered to them, and exactly how much this house did. The house sat at the edge of a quiet street, the kind where nothing really changes, same cracked sidewalks, same trees leaning just slightly toward the road, same soft golden light in the evenings that made everything feel warmer than it actually was to anyone else. It was just property, old, valuable, sellable, but to me it was the only place I had ever felt safe. My grandmother raised me there more than my parents ever did. She was the one who remembered how I liked my tea, the one who stayed up when I couldn't sleep, the one who never made me feel like I was too much or not enough, and when she started forgetting things I was the one who stayed it. Started small, she forgot where she left her glasses, then she forgot what day it was, then she forgot recipes she had been making for 40 years, and eventually she forgot me. But I didn't leave, I adjusted, I learned her routines, I labeled cabinets, I set reminders, I became the person who kept everything from falling apart quietly without asking for anything in return. My parents, they visited when it was convenient. My mother would come by with flowers, take a few photos, post something about cherishing family, and leave before dinner. My father always had a reason, work, meetings, stress. My brother didn't even pretend. This place is depressing, he said once, standing in the doorway like he couldn't wait to leave. My grandmother was asleep in the next room when he said it. I remember that, I remember everything, because moments like that, they stay. And over time something became very clear. I wasn't just taking care of her, I was protecting something they were already waiting to take. They didn't know what I knew yet. The night everything changed, my grandmother was unusually clear, clearer than she had been in months. She sat at the kitchen table, her hands wrapped around a cup of tea she hadn't touched, and looked at me in a way that made my chest tighten. They think I don't notice, she said. I didn't ask what she meant because I already knew they're waiting. She continued, not for me to get better, but for me to be gone. There was no anger in her voice, just certainty. And then she reached across the table, took my hand and said something I will never forget. You stayed. That was it, 2 words, but they carried more weight than anything else she could have said. A week later she asked me to take her somewhere, small office in town, nothing impressive, just a quiet building with a brass plaque on the door. Inside we met with a lawyer, and that was the day everything changed. I didn't understand all of it at first, the documents, the language, the structure, but I understood enough. She wasn't leaving things the way my parents expected, not anymore, not after everything she had seen. The house, the land, everything connected to it was being protected carefully, intentionally, and I was part of that protection, not as a reward, but as a safeguard. They won't like this, I said quietly. The lawyer didn't even look up. They won't like boundaries, he replied. That's different. My grandmother signed the papers that day, slowly, steadily, and when we left she looked lighter, like she had finally done something she had been thinking about for a long time. After she passed I didn't tell anyone, not yet, because the lawyer told me something that stuck. Let them show you who they are when they think you have nothing. So I waited, and they didn't disappoint. The calls started, first subtle questions, then stronger ones, then assumptions. What are your plans with the house? Have you thought about selling? It's a lot for one person. And then the pressure, the same pressure that turned into that moment in the hallway. 2 days, that was their final move. They thought I was alone, they thought I had no leverage, they thought I would fold. They didn't know what I knew yet. Those 2 days were strange because I had to pretend. I packed boxes, labeled them, moved things around just enough to make it look real, like I was preparing to leave, but I wasn't. I was preparing for something else, something they would never see coming. Friday came faster than I expected. The house felt different, quiet in a way that didn't feel empty, more like it was waiting. They arrived Right on time, of course they did. My father walked in first, confident, certain. My mother followed, already looking around like the place belonged to her. My brother came last, smirking. Did you finish packing? He asked. I didn't answer. My father didn't waste time. Where's the safe key? I told him exactly where it had always been because I wanted them to open it. I needed them to. The three of them went upstairs together. I followed slowly, staying just far enough behind. The study door creaked when they opened it. Same smell, old wood paper. Time. My father moved straight to the wall, entered the code. The safe clicked open, and for a second nothing happened. Then everything did. He reached inside, pulled out the envelope, and went completely still. My mother stepped closer. What is it? He didn't answer. He just handed her the papers. I watched her read, fast at first, then slower, then again, like she thought the words might change if she looked at them long enough. They didn't. My brother grabbed the flash drive. What is this? No one responded, because in that moment they understood, not emotionally, not morally, legally, and that's when it hit them. They didn't win. They never had. My mother turned to me, her expression completely different now. No softness, no control, just fear. What did you do? I met her eyes, calm, steady. I didn't do anything, I said. I just listened. No one spoke after that, not for a while. Then the questions started, the denial, the anger, the attempts to find a way out, but there wasn't one because everything had already been done long before those 2 days. They didn't know what I knew yet, but now they did, and it was too late. They left without another word, no pretending, no control, just silence. And the moment the door closed, my phone started ringing again and again and again. Voicemails, messages, different tones, begging, threatening, confused, but all of them had one thing in common: panic, real panic. And I didn't answer a single one. I sat at the kitchen table, in the same spot where my grandmother used to sit, and listened to every message come in one after another, because for the first time the roles had reversed. They were the ones reacting, they were the ones scrambling, they were the ones trying to fix something that had already been decided, and me, I was finally still. The days that followed were messy, of course they were. People always get louder when they realize they've lost control. Stories started spreading, versions of events that made me sound cold, selfish, ungrateful, but the truth, the actual truth, doesn't need to shout, it just needs to exist, and it did. Every document, every signature, every decision, it was all there, unshakable, and slowly everything settled, not dramatically, not all at once, just quietly, like dust after something breaks. Now when I sit on the back porch in the evenings, the house feels the same, the light still hits the same way, the silence still feels familiar, but something inside me is different. I used to think being alone meant being abandoned. Now I no, sometimes it just means being free. And if you've ever had someone try to take something from you, something you stayed for, something you protected when no one else did, then you understand this silence doesn't always mean weakness. Sometimes it means you're waiting. And before I leave you here, tell me again, where are you listening from, and what time is it where you are? Because I want to know how far this story reached, and whether at any point you felt like you already knew how it would end, or if just for a second you realized something they didn't. The first night after they left, the house didn't feel quiet. It felt aware, like every wall, every floorboard, every old hinge had been holding its breath for years and had finally exhaled. I didn't turn on the lights right away. I just stood there in the kitchen, the same kitchen where they had given me a deadline, and let the silence settle around me. My phone kept lighting up on the table, calls, messages, notifications, stacking one on top of another. I didn't touch it because I already knew what they were saying. They didn't know what I knew yet, but they were starting to understand, just enough to panic, and panic makes people careless. That was the part the lawyer warned me about. Give them time. He had said people reveal everything when they think they're losing something they already counted as theirs. He was right. By Saturday morning the tone had shifted. The messages weren't controlled anymore, they weren't careful, they were messy. My mother went from calm to desperate in less than 12 hours. Lila, we need to talk. This isn't what your grandmother would have wanted. Call me before this goes too far. Then you don't understand what you're doing. Then please. That last one was different, short, uneven, like it had been typed too fast. My father didn't call as much, he never did, but when he did his messages were precise, cold. Let's handle this privately. You're making a mistake dragging this out. We can still resolve this. Resolve, that word again, as if I had created the problem, as if they hadn't stood in my house and given me 2 days to leave it. And my brother, he didn't bother hiding anything. This is insane. He texted, you think a few papers change anything? I stared at that message longer than I should have, because it told me something important. He still didn't get it, not fully. He thought this was emotional, temporary, something that could be pushed, pressured, undone. They didn't know what I knew yet, but they were getting closer. By Sunday it spread beyond them. That was always going to happen. Small towns don't keep things quiet, they just reshape them. 2 people I hadn't heard from in years suddenly messaged me, hey, I heard there's some tension in the family, your mom seems really upset. That was one word for it. I almost laughed because I knew exactly how she was telling the story. Soft voice, controlled emotion, carefully chosen details. She was good at that, always had been. She could turn anything into concern, even something like this. But here's the thing, people like her forget Stories only work when no one has proof, and I had more than proof. I had a timeline, I had records, I had everything they had never thought I would keep. That afternoon I opened my laptop and started building something, a file, every message, every call, every email saved, organized, timestamped, not because I wanted revenge but because I understood something now that I hadn't fully understood before. Kindness without documentation gets rewritten, and I wasn't going to let that happen. They didn't know what I knew yet, but they were about to. Monday morning my father showed up unannounced. Of course he did. He knocked once, then opened the door like he still believed he could. I was in the living room when he walked in. He looked different, not weaker but tighter, like something inside him had started to crack and he was holding it together by force. "We need to talk," he said. "Not can we not please just need." I didn't move. "I'm listening." He stayed standing. That was deliberate control. Positioning. "This doesn't have to become something bigger," he continued. "We can fix this." Fix, another word that assumed I had broken something. "How?" I asked. He hesitated just for a second. "Then we move forward together. Shared management, shared decisions." There it was not the house control. He didn't want ownership, he wanted access, because access leads to influence and influence leads to outcomes, and outcomes can be shaped. "No," I said, just one word, calm, flat, final. That was the moment everything shifted. His jaw tightened. "You're being emotional," he said. That almost made me smile because it was predictable. When logic fails, they go for instability. "You gave me 2 days to leave my home," I said quietly, "and now you're asking for partnership." He didn't respond immediately because there wasn't a good response to that. We were trying to do what's best for the family. There it was again, family, the word they used when they wanted something. "The family," I repeated. He looked at me like I had missed the point, but I hadn't. "Not anymore. You mean what's best for you," I said, and that's when he made his mistake, a small one, but enough. "We have obligations. You don't understand obligations, not emotional, financial pressure." That word sat in my mind longer than anything else he said because it connected something I hadn't fully seen before. They didn't know what I knew yet, but I was starting to see what they were hiding. "Then explain it," I said. He didn't. Instead he shifted. "You're putting yourself in a difficult position." Subtle threat, soft enough to deny, clear enough to feel. "I think I'm already past that," I replied. He stared at me for a long moment, then turned and walked out. No goodbye, no resolution, just tension. And the moment the door closed I knew this wasn't over, not even close, because people like him don't walk away. When they lose they escalate. And by Tuesday he did. A legal notice arrived that afternoon, clean envelope, formal language, challenging everything, the documents, the decision, my position, the claim that my grandmother hadn't been in the right state of mind, that I had influenced her, that I had taken advantage. I read it once, then again, slowly, carefully, not because I was surprised, but because I wasn't. This was the last move. When they can't control the outcome, they attack the process. They didn't know what I knew yet, but now it mattered more than ever. "I called the lawyer," he answered. "On the second ring they filed." I said I expected they would. He replied calmly, that steadiness, it mattered more than I realized. "Are you ready?" he asked. I looked around the house, at the walls, at the space I had protected for years, at everything that had led to this moment. "Yes," I said, and for the first time I meant it without hesitation. "Good," he said. "Then we let them talk." I repeated. "Yes," he said, "because the more they say the more they reveal." He paused, then added quietly, "And the truth doesn't need help, it just needs time." I hung up and set my phone down. The house was quiet again, but this time it didn't feel like waiting. It felt like something else, something steady, something certain. They thought this was the beginning of a fight, but it wasn't. It was the end of something. They just hadn't realized it yet, and neither had I, not fully, but I would soon, very soon.